All right, it is Sunday, the 16th of June in 2019. I'm in front of the Unitarian Church in Lachine, the Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist congregation, and I'm protesting against Unitarian Universalist perversion of justice, amongst other things, but that's the main theme today, and I've been talking about various Unitarian Universalist perversions of justice, including Sue Montgomery's false criminal harassment accusation against me, which sought, amongst other things, to force an end to my peaceful public protest against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse outside the Unitarian Church of Montreal. That was not the only motivation, but it was a secondary motivation, shall we say. The main thing Sue Montgomery wanted to do was to keep me out of Montreal City Council meetings so I could not ask her questions about her complicity in Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse cover-up efforts, especially her past and apparently ongoing abusive misuse of the SPVM police force and Canada's criminal justice system to shut down my protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. I mean, that's to a large degree why she accused me of criminal harassment. It was to shut down my protest, and I suspect this was quite premeditated. I think Sue Montgomery has probably been contemplating doing this for years. She's certainly known about Canada's criminal harassment law for quite a long time, so I suspect that this was reasonably well planned on Sue Montgomery's part, almost certainly with a certain amount of collusion and complicity with the church itself. I think it's even possible that Sue Montgomery might have told Montreal Unitarians that if they voted for her and got her elected as the mayor of Côte-des-Neiges, Notre-Dame-de-Grâce, that she would use her influence as the mayor of Côte-des-Neiges and Notre-Dame-de-Grâce with the police to get me arrested for some crime and get my protest shut down, or at least get a restraining order against me or something like that. So I'm pretty sure that's a reasonable scenario of what could very well have happened, and there's certain evidence, there's circumstantial evidence that points to that. Anyway, I just want to say briefly that the previous video clip cut out. It might have just come to the end of its half-hour segment, so I missed some of my monologue of what I was saying previously. So I think I'll repeat some of what I was saying previously. Good day, sir. So we have people arriving here. When I got here, somewhat after 9, there was like no cars, nobody here. I was actually wondering if perhaps it was a church picnic or something and they were all away, or if they shut down for the summer, because a good number of Unitarian Universalist churches completely shut down in the summer, after they've had their annual general meeting. We got a police car here driving by, police van 84. So it could just be driving by, or it might have been called here by members of the Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist congregation. I guess we'll know soon enough. But it just drove by, had a look at what's going on here. So anyway, getting back to what I was saying about Sue Montgomery's bullshit, if you don't mind my using that term, a criminal harassment charge against me, accusation against me, which was brought as a charge against me by Crown prosecutors who'd been misled by Sue Montgomery about the actual facts. I wanted to say, and was saying, and may not have had it recorded, that Sue Montgomery essentially, knowingly and willfully lied to the police in claiming to fear for her personal safety. And I say that on the basis of various forms of evidence. Why don't you join the choir? Why don't I join the choir? I'm singing a song right now. I'm singing. I should join the choir? I love your voice. It's not bad, but I'm not a good singer. Oh, I'm a good talker. I'm not such a good singer. Maybe I'll do some punk rock for you, though. So that was basically the choir director, shall we say, of the Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist Church. Carrie Ann, last name escaping me right now. Carrie Ann I think, I'm not going to say it because I'm probably wrong, but anyway, Carrie Ann. Hey, Carrie Ann. Okay, just trying a little bit of singing there. I'm sure she'll recognize that song. Anyhow, getting back to things, we do have these interruptions. You know, one of the things about doing these monologues and this and that is, you know, things happen while I'm explaining things, and I'll deal with that. You know, I'll respond to that, and then I'll get back to what we're talking about. And yes, sometimes I will lose my train of thought or whatever. But anyway, essentially what I wanted to say, the point that I want to make regarding perversion of justice is that Sue Montgomery almost certainly lied to the police when she claimed to fear for her personal safety in a police report that she wrote and signed on December 5th of 2017, which resulted in my arrest when I went to a Montreal City Council meeting to ask questions about Sue Montgomery. I was actually going to ask a question to Valerie Plante. I had told Sue Montgomery on the 5th of December that it was my intention to ask her a question at the next meeting, and that I expected her to answer it because she had basically refused to answer a question that I asked during the November City Council meeting. So when I had this chance encounter with Sue Montgomery on the 5th of December of 2017, one of the things that I said to her is that, you know, I intended to be at the next Montreal City Council meeting, and that I intended to ask her a question, that I expected her to answer that question rather than avoiding or refusing to answer it. So Sue knew that this was on my agenda. You know, I was going to come and ask a question that she didn't want to have asked. And I think she was basically desperate to prevent that from happening. So she went to the police and she filed a police report alleging harassment, and more specifically criminal harassment, claiming the fear for her personal safety. Well, Sue Montgomery has never at any time shown any fear for her safety in the sense of her physical safety in my presence. In fact, she's done the exact opposite on quite a number of occasions. She's been in very close physical proximity to me, even within a foot or two, and not showing the slightest fear of me, none whatsoever. And as I said in the previous monologue, which may or may not have been recorded, some months after I was arrested for alleged criminal harassment, on the basis of that claimed fear for her personal safety by Sue Montgomery in a police report. So I was arrested when I went to that City Council meeting. I never got the chance to ask the question that I wanted to ask. Well, yes, I did want to explain that in the interim I changed my mind, and I was actually going to ask Valerie Plante a question about Sue Montgomery's ethical lapses, shall we say. So essentially what it comes down to is that Sue has never shown fear of me, and essentially just told an expedient lie in order to get me arrested. You know, she was desperate to have me not continue to ask questions about her, especially her abusive misuse of the SPVM and the criminal justice system to shut down my protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. So it's actually incredibly ironic that that's exactly what she did, you know, to get me out of city council meetings, and secondarily to shut down my protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. Sue did what she did in the past. She claimed to be afraid of me, claimed to fear for her safety, and this time she wasn't just seeking a restraining order, because I would have contested that. It would have taken months for the hearings. Sue was desperate. Sue wanted me out of city council meetings. Sue knew that the only way that she could get me out of city council meetings quickly and efficiently was to accuse me of a crime and get court conditions imposed on me. So that's what happened. And as I said in the previous video, which again may or may not have been recorded towards the end, because it did shut off at some point. After I was arrested, I contacted Canadian Journalists for Freedom of Expression and told them what was going on, made it clear to them that this was an abusive misuse of the criminal harassment law to silence a vocal critic of a politician, and actually to help Unitarian Universalists keep their clergy abuse problem hidden by shutting down my protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. So as part of the process of responding to this, the communications director, if I'm not mistaken, in any way, one of the staffers, employees of the Canadian Journalists for Freedom of Expression, Kevin Metcalf, some weeks or months after I had approached CJFE, had a phone interview with Sue Montgomery regarding this, trying to get Sue Montgomery's side of the story, which is the responsible thing to do in any situation, especially if you're sort of a quasi-journalist or something, or an actual journalist. Getting the other side of the story is important. Something Sue Montgomery and her cronies in the Montreal mainstream media don't seem to agree with, because they've basically done very one-sided biased reporting. There's a whole bunch of reporters that have not questioned me at all, have refused to ask me questions even when I said, hey, let's talk, that has happened. Sue is very much controlling the narrative with her influence within the Montreal media community. So anyway, as I was saying, in this interview, Kevin Metcalf straight up asked Sue Montgomery if she had any fears of a physical attack on her by myself. And Sue Montgomery responded to that, according to Kevin Metcalf, what he told me in a phone call and what was reported by the CJFE when they finally got around to putting out their press release about this. Sue Montgomery told Kevin Metcalf that she did not actually fear for her safety in the sense of a physical attack on her by yours truly. And that is actually the correct response, because I've actually been very peaceful, very non-violent throughout my whole protest, which began in May of 1998. There's been almost no violence on my part, and the absolute minimal violence on my part, which consisted of stopping walking backwards when someone was attacking me, happened because someone was attacking me. I was being assaulted by David Horn of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, and he got way too close to me, and I'm like walking backwards filming with this same camera. So I'm walking backwards filming David Horn advancing on me in a very aggressive manner. He'd actually hit me a few times and smashed the camera a few times prior to sticking his face right into the lens. He put the lower part of his face into the lens of this camera that I'm recording with right now. Don't ask me why. I presume he wanted to block the view and not use his hands to do it, so he'd have both hands free. So I was thinking, he might hit me, he might punch me, he might shove me, whatever. And so I stopped walking backwards, and the camera pressed into his face much harder than he was expecting it to, because no doubt he expected me to continue walking backwards. So I just stopped walking backwards. He's a biggish kind of guy, a couple 100 pounds, maybe even 250 pounds, I really don't know exactly. So he basically plowed into the lens, the lower part of his face, with much more force than he was expecting, because I stopped walking backwards, and that basically caused a certain amount of pain. And so he ripped his face away from the camera, he ripped it away like this, and in the process of doing that, he cut his lip. So, in the whole 20 plus years of protesting against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse outside the Unitarian Church of Montreal, the only time anyone got hurt physically as a result of my own actions was when David Horn got a little cut in his lip because I stopped walking backwards when he was assaulting me. That's it. Sue Montgomery knows perfectly well I'm not a violent person. Pretty well everyone at the Unitarian Church of Montreal knows I'm not a violent person. All of my friends and family know I'm not a violent person. Oh, and should I mention that the SPVM police, at least some of them, have told Sue Montgomery on several different occasions that they have assessed me as being non-violent, at least in terms of physical violence. I might get a little bit verbally violent here and there. I might get a little angry, I might get a little pissed off, I might insult people, but I don't use physical violence. I don't believe physical violence solves problems. It only exacerbates them. For example, David Horn now has a really interesting YouTube video where he looks like a total asshole. on YouTube. Oh, did I use some verbal violence? Did I call David Horn a total asshole? Well, excuse me. It's called freedom of speech. Hey, David Horn, you're an asshole. See, that's about as bad as it gets with me. You know, like even in terms of verbal violence, about as bad it gets as me calling an asshole an asshole. Hey, David, hope you're enjoying this video. Sorry, I couldn't resist that. But you know, literally, this is about as violent as I get. You know, like it comes down to verbal violence. I might tell someone to fuck off. I might tell someone to, you know, whatever. You know, I will call an asshole, as some other Unitarian assholes know. I'm not going to name them, but there's a certain number of other Unitarian Universalist assholes who I've called assholes because, well, they're assholes. We're having fun with this. So this is called freedom of speech, Unitarians, and I will call assholes assholes. An asshole is an asshole is an asshole. I got some cars here, so I think we're going to end this monologue and put the camera around the neck and continue here, and we'll maybe finish up with the details later. So yeah, 16 minutes into this. Take this off, and it's on manual focus. I guess we'll just leave it like that. It's good enough. And we will circulate with the picket signs as people are arriving. So they're arriving much later than I was expecting today.
What are you doing?
I'm protesting against Unitarian Universalist perversion of justice.
Well, that's great, but would you do it somewhere else, because we have a lot of old people coming here this morning?
Well, no, this is a Unitarian Universalist church, and even the old people are complicit in the injustices and abuses that I'm protesting against if they know about them. If they don't know about them, they're not complicit, but as soon as they know about them, they're complicit. And I'd be very surprised if a good number of the old people at this church don't already know about what I'm protesting against.
What church do you belong?
I got kicked out of the Unitarian Church of Montreal for protesting against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse.
Oh, I see. You've got a hard on for the Unitarians.